Hi.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Okay. Wonderful for everyone to be here. Welcome to the next episode of the International Language Coaching Association and our Expert 2022 series, which we have quite affectionately compiled this year. We've had some amazing speakers, including Martin, who we're going to listen to in a few minutes. And I was in a panic 2 minutes before we started because I was like, oh, I have to introduce Martin. Oh, what do I say? And he said, well, tell them about the time when we, got to know each other. And I was like, okay, well, how was that? So we met each other through LinkedIn. And we just got into these amazing conversations about coaching in language, around language, in education in general, because Martin has a slightly different background to the regular language coach run, so to say. So that's going to be really exciting to hear a little bit of that story. Hopefully you're going to share some stories. And in the meantime, I'm also admitting people, so I'm just controlling everything here. First thing first, I'm asking everyone to mute themselves. There will be opportunity towards the end, maybe in the middle. I don't know, Martin, there will be some interaction going on, so we'll see how that works. And we're planning this for about 30, 40, 50 minutes. So however long you say, that's fine. We are recording, so it's going to go on to our YouTube channel. Any other housekeeping that we have? Yeah, if you've got any questions, anything that you want to be sharing with us, throw it in the chat box, because that way I can monitor it, I can see it, and then I can call Martin's attention to it. Is there anything else? I don't really think so. Will you be sharing slides, Martin? I think so. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I'm just checking if there's anyone else. Okay, hi everyone. Yeah, and please throw into the chat box where you're listening to us from. Either the continent, country, city, wherever you might be from. I'm currently in a small village on the side of the hill in Hungary, and that's where I regularly join from. This is my study. This is where I work from. So if you've got any, I don't know, anything in the chat that you'd like to share. Okay, Portland, Oregon. Oh, wonderful. Okay, I'm wonderful. Okay, there's a fantastic conference next year there in TESOL, so that'd be amazing. Okay. Atlanta, US, cloudy and cool. Thank you very much for that. Okay, Hungary, wonderful. Okay, Toronto, Geneva, Switzerland, very nice. Okay, and we've got southwest of France. I'd love to be there, Vicky. All right. Okay, Martin, would you like to start sharing screen and then we'll see? Okay, we've got Niagara Falls here from Judy. Okay. All right. Okay, and then we'll settle into it nicely. So we've got lots and lots of excitement building up here as
yeah.
well. Yeah, okay, so right.
There we are, sharing screen.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so there are all the lovely people from different expert series that we've been looking at. Yeah, we do see the edge of the slide. If you can.
You won't in a minute.
I won't. All right.
No.
Okay. Fine. Okay. So welcome everyone, and yeah. Okay, Martin, I'd give it over to you. Okay, so it's completely up to you. Right. Okay. Fine. Thank you. Okay.
So this is Martin Richards calling in from Gothenburg, Sweden, where it's grey. It's always grey, but different shades of grey. Today we have a little bit of blustery weather. A couple of days ago it was stinking hot. So take your pick. Wanted to say something about how I met Gabriella, because there are many coincidences in life, and Gabriella was one of the nicest ones. We connected on LinkedIn, as I have with lots of different people, and we just got talking. I sent her a link and she signed up for a conversation with me on Zoom, and it's just gone from strength to strength. We talked for hours about coaching, about teaching, particularly English, because as you can hear, I'm an Englishman, but also, as she mentioned, I have a different past to most language teachers. I used to teach mathematics. Here sits a mathematics teacher who actually crossed from the UK, where I taught mathematics, to Sweden, where I live, and discovered that, oh, I can't teach mathematics in Swedish. I don't know enough Swedish. So I'll have to convert, won't I? So that was a little bit of an introduction of how that happened. Let's get to these pictures. It's not doing it. Never mind. But you're going to get to see all the little background pictures. Never mind. This talk is about teaching English into your business. And I'm taking the idea of teaching English in a school where you can be employed as a teacher and move into your own business where you're teaching English, but in a different way. So in this workshop, I'll focus on exploring turning English teachers into business English consultants in a way, where you have your own company and you're earning your living that way. You'll learn how you can switch from primarily teaching, if that's what you've been doing, to coaching, to allow the learning to happen and your business to thrive. There's something magic that happens when you stop teaching for a bit and do some coaching instead. Something shifts in the thinking of the people that you're working with. You'll learn the difference between teaching and coaching, and you'll be able to apply. I'll give you four powerful questions that you can use that will transform your business. Lots of promises there. I hope I can deliver. At the end, I'll have a little checklist where you can tell me if I've delivered on all of these promises. So the three things I want to be working with today are as follows. Three transitions. The first one is the shift from teaching English to teaching English as a business. If you want to, you can write these down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing that screen in a moment so you can see my face. I think you get to see a little more of my communication. I will come back to the slides later. The second thing I will talk about is the switch from teaching to coaching. And the last one is letting go of the act of being a teacher and letting the learning happen. And that's also where the business part really begins to take off. So I'll stop sharing and you should just see my face, or maybe you've got the whole group of people. Depends how you set up your screen.
Yeah, maybe you can turn on your cameras if you want just for this bit.
Yeah, if you want to show me your expressions, otherwise you'll be unknown to me. So the very first transition is from teacher to business owner. I was once upon a time employed to teach English here in Sweden at an adult education center. And some of you, I think, are running adult education centers if you've already made that transition into business. And you would have employed somebody like myself to teach a number of classes for a number of hours. And in order to keep the money down, the expenses down, you would have employed me only for the time when you need me. So I was employed, but not full time and not the whole year. And that was a very wobbly thing to stand on when you've got one child under your arm, a 2-year-old, and another one on the way. I was given a nudge to think about something more that would give me more money, that would give me more stability. And I needed to have control over that. I didn't want to be employed by somebody. I wanted to employ myself. So I found out how. The shift to being a business owner in Sweden was very simple. You simply register the fact that you are selling your services and you will pay the appropriate tax at the end of the year, if you've earned any money, of course. And that means a little shift because you must charge your clients enough money so that you can have an income and pay your taxes, your income tax, and pay all of the other sales taxes and everything else that goes on. And in my case, enough money to pay somebody else to do the bookkeeping. Tip number one, if you're a business person who doesn't like bookkeeping, it's really worth it to invest the money in somebody else to do it, because it frees you up to do something that you're better at, teaching, for example. So what I did was to sell, design, run, and get somebody else to invoice for the work that I was doing. That was the first shift, letting go of being employed and employing yourself. I don't know how many of you are on that journey, but if you are self-employed, could you just make a little note there in the chat? Hire yourself, says Anish. Yes, exactly. I've had the best boss ever. He's the guy that I look at the mirror when I brush my teeth. And I say, do you want to work today? And I go, yeah, all right then. Yeah, that's the way to go. Employing yourself is actually taking on a great deal of responsibility. It's taking away the power that other people, an employer, has over you in terms of how much money you can earn. It's also very scary because, again, you are responsible for everything. We had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old at home, or 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at home. And I was actually working from home to a great extent. I had an office on and off, but yeah, life-work balance. What if they're all mashed into one? Bit of a challenge. So what I noticed about the teaching, when I was teaching maths and even when I was teaching English, I was bound to a syllabus. I was bound to teach what I was paid to teach. Particularly in school, I could not stray very far from teaching that which was on the syllabus. I mean, you have a little life lesson now and again, but basically you had to get back to the syllabus and teach it. Whereas, as I was self-employed, my syllabus came from my clients. My syllabus of what shall I teach came from what are they willing to pay for? And that was one of the first calculations I had to make in my head, was how much money do I need to make in order to fund the family and do everything that I want to do? And who can I find who will pay me that amount of money? Because I'm limited in the number of hours I could work. So of course, I ended up teaching in business because they're the ones with deeper pockets. And I suppose because I was interested in technology, I did say I was a maths teacher, my interest in technology took me to companies that, well, they employed people not for their language skill, but for their technology skill. It's usually IT or, in this case I'm thinking of here, it's a company that makes boilers. Couldn't imagine a more boring thing, making boilers, but they took an old boiler and converted it so it burned clean for many, many more years. So there was a business in that, but the people who worked with it weren't necessarily very good at English. They were quite good at German, but not English. So I found an open market there in helping these men mostly talk about their business of building boilers in a foreign language. They were not interested in grammar. They were not interested in vocabulary. Well, they were, but it was the product names and all the different things that they worked with. So I learned from my clients. I also learned that it was not the language teaching that was important for these particular clients. It might have been when I was teaching in school, but I was now teaching in companies. I had one guy, and this goes back such a long time. Do you remember acetate sheets? You put on an overhead projector, something very ancient. Yeah, like a transparent piece of paper. And you would, of course, says Vicky, are you the same age? Well, it was like ancient technology for doing what we're doing now. Yeah, I love them too. Now, this guy had come to me, he said, I want to practice giving a presentation about boilers. Okay, fair enough. He came along and we booked a whole morning to talk about boilers. And he had a stack of overheads, And he came in and he put them on the table. He said, I want to get through these in an hour. And I suddenly realized that I'm not teaching English anymore. This is mission impossible to get through at least 100 slides in an hour. So I said to him, pick out the 10 most important and I'll go and make some coffee, strong coffee. So I was in the kitchen and I was thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to convince this guy that I can't possibly take him through 100 slides in the 4 hours is a long time to practice, but he's going to deliver it in one. I came back and he was sweating because he couldn't choose between these 100 slides. That's what he needed help with. And teaching him wasn't appropriate, certainly not language. At this point, I asked him what he needed. Notice, I can't prepare a lesson in advance. I have to prepare it together with him. So here we are in the room asking, what do you really need? He said, I need to find slides I can do in an hour. We picked out 10, and he then explained them to me. And yeah, PowerPoint training is exactly this. We spent the whole morning talking about, but not presenting, talking about his 10 slides. I think it was slightly more in the end, but okay. He then left the others with me because I said, you've got to promise you never use them. So I made him leave them with me. And off he went to give his presentation. He succeeded. And for the people around him who knew he was extremely thorough, extremely detailed, and often very sweaty because he was quite scared, he walked in with confidence, put his slides on and talked about them. He just chatted with the audience about the slides that he was going to present to them. They felt comfortable, they felt relaxed, they engaged with him, and in the end, they bought his product. It was worth so much money that he came back later to learn more about how to select the slides that he will need. So my language teachings shifted over to somebody called it PowerPoint training. Yes, something like that. My goodness, I had so many stories. Not enough water. There was one other gentleman who, similar setup, he wanted to be able to give presentations in English. And I asked him, why do you want to do this? And he told me that he wanted one day to be the leader of this company. It was a big IT company. They designed the things that we live in, like buildings and roads, everything that you go out and touch. That's what they designed. They designed cities. He wanted to run this company. He was very ambitious. He was actually the same age as me. Most of the people I've been working with had been older than me, but this was a time when I'd grown older and my clients hadn't, so I'd caught up. We went for a walk to talk about the English he would need in giving talks and presentations and being a leader. And whilst we were going for this walk, which was by a river, you need to know that's by a river, he said to me, I want to be a leader. So I stopped him and said, hang on a minute. I faced him, moved a little bit further away and said, pardon? He said, I want to be a leader. Can't hear you. He said, I want to be a leader. I said, better. And I walked even further away. And it got him to shout out his desire to be a leader, and then crossed the river over a bridge. I said, give me 2 minutes, went to the bridge, crossed over and said, what? Now he is in Gothenburg, the town where this company is. And he says, the top of his voice, I want to be a leader. 2 years later, I visit him at his company, the same company. Guess what position he's got? He runs a company with 75,000 employees. And he told me that moment when he voiced his desire to be a leader in English in front of the whole world, in a way, that's when the first time he made his mind up. He made his heart speak through his mouth. And that is what language coaching is more about. It's not about the grammar and vocabulary, but I think you already know that. So going back to my slides for a minute, are there any questions at this point you want to drop into the no questions? Nah, questions.
None yet. I think that people are trying to figure out how to connect with these stories. So it's going to come. Okay.
Connect with the stories. So what I'm saying is that when you teach a subject, you often start with the material, the syllabus, the content, before you even meet the students, before you even meet the learners. And that's in the world of teaching. Nothing wrong with it, I'm just saying that's where it is. And when you step over to taking responsibility together for designing, what is it we're going to do here? How are we going to do it in the moment? That's when you have stepped into the world of coaching, be it mathematics or I could do my mathematics teaching example as well. It's a question about letting go. Exactly, letting go of control of being the one who does everything and create a space where the learning, can happen. I do this in mathematics as well. Students who are engaged in the learning process actively will learn far more than those who are passively and perhaps aggressively not involved. So those are the students at the back of the room who are digging holes in the desk with their penknives. If you can get people involved in their learning, you don't have to teach them anything. There was one example, which I'll take as I switch screens here. Let's go back to sharing screens, because I do want to show you this one. I was working in a company called Mercury International. Oh, I actually named the company. Yeah, I feel safe because they no longer exist. I've been around a long time, and it's one of the first companies that I worked at. They train people. And this was before Zoom, before Skype. There was GoToMeeting, it did exist, but people didn't often have online meetings. And my clients, I was there to train them in English. They said, Martin, could you design a lesson about how to hold online meetings? Now, in the chat, if you wish to share with everybody, or on a piece of paper, if you want to keep it to yourself, what would you include in your preparation for this lesson? It might be several lessons. Your clients want to learn how to hold online meetings. What's in your preparation? Yep, please. Someone's put in the technical skills, which I suppose would mean how to operate the technology. Yeah. Yeah. What do they know now? Very important.
Are you okay reading them?
Yeah, I can see them.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So Sarah's put one in there about role play or using the technology. I'm reading technology is the issue. The purpose of the online, well, a very good question to ask, because if you don't know that, you could be preparing them for something else. Questions to find out what they already know. Exactly. Oh, I'm smelling some coaches here. If I was to go to a school and ask school teachers about this, they would often go back to their own experience before they go to the experience of the learners. So what Vicky wrote here about what do they already know, very important. So here's a teacherly way of doing things. If you were teaching about online meetings, you might decide to teach them some things about how to welcome the attendees. What do you say? You know, what Gabriella did at the beginning, we might write a little dialogue around that. What is the presenter supposed to say? You might do some information about turn taking, because that would be in different cultures, it's done differently. In this way, we've set it up that I'm the speaker, everyone gets to listen. There's no turn taking until we open up the conversation, then you'll notice that it'll be different. You might tell them what to say at the end of the meeting, how they can summarize what has been said and thank everybody and all that kind of thing. You might even get some pronunciation of difficult words. You might do a demo, you might do a practice and some feedback. Great. This all in the world of teaching. You can prepare all of this before you even meet the students. You've heard that they want to learn about online meetings, and you gather up your material and you prepare to teach it. Great. And you can do this instead. You can ask them why. Somebody mentioned that, Vicky, I noticed. Why do they want to do this? And here I'm trying to evoke some emotion. I'm trying to get them engaged in their learning. What makes this meeting important? I don't need to know what it's for, because that's none of my business. I want them to share with me why it's important to them. And also look at how it would feel. What are you trying to avoid? If it goes badly, what's that feeling we're trying to avoid? So we know if it's coming. You might even discuss cost. You know, what's the cost to the company if you fail to hold an effective meeting? And really, although you might spend a little bit of time on how it goes badly, you want to spend more time on how it feels when it goes well, and the benefits to the department or the company for a successful meeting. Get them really excited about how it feels when the meeting goes well. And then you can go back and build in different factors. How do you know it's going well? What are you looking for? And then, of course, everyone's concerned about what if. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if people don't turn up? What if people won't go online? And pulling out of them, the participants, their situations that they are concerned about means that they own the learning. At this point, I've given no input at all, because what makes the online meeting important? I don't know. They do. What are they concerned about? I don't know, but they do. We might have some exchanges around how to save the situation when things go wrong, if we have a situation that I recognize. But maybe within the group, there will be some learning, some experience that we can share. And what can you do to prepare? Somebody already mentioned role play. I'd ask them what they want to do to prepare, because for some people, role plays, you know, they'd rather have their fingers pulled out. For some people, role plays is horrible. For others, like teachers, we love it. So I would ask them, what can you do to prepare, and brainstorm within the group how they want to learn. So the questions are different. If I go back a slide, with teaching, the focus is on what and how to do it. What should I teach? How should I teach it? Whereas with coaching, the focus is on why they want to do it, and what are the situations they are concerned about? What are their what ifs? Is this landing okay? Because I'm about to put the whole thing in one bag. I could have just told you this at the beginning. There is a model called format. Do you recognize format? Not seeing too many faces. Yes. This was Edith Burney, mother and daughter. I can't remember the daughter's name. They put together ways of engaging the heart and the mind, both sides of the brain, different types of people, different types of learners, and they gave 4 key questions as a guide. I see someone put their hand up, so let's hear what that is first. No, nobody put their hand up. So this is the, there you go, thank you, format for learning, and it's Australia. So this is a very useful tool, and teachers who are using that, even in school, they are actually coaching, but they don't call it coaching, they just call it using a very nice tool called format. The reason I say it's coaching is because of the 2 questions that 1 and 3, like their why. And instead of the teacher preparing reasons why this is important, they hold a conversation with the students where their why is evolved. And the teacher can add a little bit, of course, but not too much, because then they would be dominating. Once they decided why it's important, they can talk about what's included, what do we include in this lesson, how we can learn it. Obviously, the teacher had lots of ideas, but if it comes from the students, that's even better. What if? And then you can even go back through the list and use number 3 again. You can go around the cycle multiple times so that you get the practice and the feedback that you're looking for. Going back to Mercury for a second, I gave them a lesson in how to run an online meeting. And I had never held an online meeting in my life. And I was able to do it by facilitating their learning rather than teaching. And it meant that my reputation within the company as a deliverer of learning was raised dramatically, because they learned so, they felt so good after learning from each other and from themselves, and they felt so empowered that, you know, this Martin, he made us feel so good. And that's often the reason why they keep buying from you. It's not the content they're buying, that's a given. There's a hygiene factor. Content's always going to be there. It's how they feel about you is why they come back. And that's what's going to accelerate your business. When your people, your buyers are getting way more than they expected, that's when they come back. And that's when they start sharing your email address and so forth with their colleagues. Okay, I'll pause there and to hear if we have any questions.
Any questions or comments, then we're very happy to hear them, because Martin's been running for quite a while now.
I'm very dry. Suffering from cactus tongue.
Okay. If there's anything that you'd like to comment on, anything that you found useful, new, interesting, a nice thing that you've perceived, then do add in the chat. We're not seeing anything coming in yet, but I think everyone's kind of waiting for, you know, how to continue, what's next. Nope, nothing. I don't see any hands raised either at this point. Okay, good. Okay, Vicky. Okay, format.
Vicky's always bailing out early.
Yeah.
In other circumstances, she's a busy lady. So yes, do look at format, because if I wanted to train teachers to become more coach-like, format is the first place I go, because it gives me access to the first, the why and the how.
Okay, we've got.
Yeah, what's included? So let's take us back to the example of holding an online meeting. Now remember, I'd never held an online meeting in my life, so I had no idea of the issues that might come up, but they did. They tried it and had problems. That's why they wanted help. So what's included? They would say, oh, what happens? How do I? And then it would become a learning point for us in the moment. So the sub questions would be more about the what, the technology in this case. Someone mentioned that earlier on. They also got very interested in the cultural element, because remember, in Sweden, you're speaking English with people who are often not English speakers. Most of the business is not done with the UK, it's done with the rest of the world where they speak international English. So one of the elements that turned up in this course, the what, is the cultural differences. Why do they think differently? How is it that we think in this way in Sweden and this company, and they think in a completely different way? What's going on? So even though the topic was online meetings, it had a strong element of cultural differences and communicating across those differences, so that people were able to, you know, take on board new ideas, to say their piece, that kind of thing. For example, in one culture, it's very rude to interrupt, and in another culture, it's very important to interrupt. I was working with a Frenchman who would always interrupt me, and he would always say the opposite of what I was saying, mostly, so the conversation would carry on. It's his way of engaging in the conversation, and we would agree in the end that our opinions were going to swap. He was going to agree with what I'd said earlier that he disagreed with, but he only disagreed with to keep the conversation going. So for him, conversation was more important than conclusion. And for others, the conclusion is most important. So there's lots of things that you can put into that. So Marie, is that okay with your question about number 2 there? Included any specific sub-questions? It depends on what you're digging into. My favorite question there is, what else? I have become really lazy as a coach to not ask too much specific stuff, because then it comes from me. So I would be asking them, what else would be included? What else would be useful? If you had something that was included that really made a difference, what would that be? And although it sounds like a very vague question, if you can get people to speak from their hearts, speak very quickly, then the truth comes out, and they begin to say some things that they would logically maybe set aside. Exactly, Anesh, you're exactly right. Kind of cultural awareness and the ability to filter through different. Caroline, absolutely right. Engagement by argument, exactly. The person, I don't know if it's just France, but it was my experience. Okay. So a little bit of summary. The transitions that I've been talking about today are from teaching the English language over to doing this for a business where you're making money. And the transformation is to switch from information, from content specifically, I have the content, I will sell it to you, that's the teaching side, to engaging emotionally with your clients. If they are offering you the opportunity of going through 100 slides in an hour for a presentation, you know that something other than language is required here. With the gentlemen who worked with the boilers, they actually taught me, the way I taught them to give presentations about boilers, because I know nothing about boilers, was to say to them, what's the first thing you say? How do you say it? And then I would perform like a puppet under their direction. And I would use their drawings and their slides, and I would get it wrong because I'm an idiot. I don't know the technical terms, and they would love teaching me the technical terms, which they would say in a slightly different accent perhaps. And I would say, oh, you mean so-and-so. So occasionally I'd pretend to be a little bit more stupid than I actually was. And sometimes they caught me at it. So it became a little backwards and forwards there. Being the student for the learners to teach, being the clay to be modeled by the students is a brilliant way of getting around role play, because these gentlemen would never do role play. Actually, they did in the end. I did something called the prepositions waltz, where I gave out calls, you know, stand by your partner, stand beside your partner, with all the prepositions I could think of, and they would dance in the room with their partner, all men. And when the manager came by to sort of see what was going on, because all these men were walking around and you couldn't really work out what we were doing in an English lesson, I introduced the manager to the prepositions waltz and danced with him as we moved around the rooms. Sometimes role play works. Teaching to coaching, the shift there, as you've already noticed, teaching is much more about telling. You know something, so you share it with your learners, you tell them from your experience or from your books, your research, whereas coaching is much more about pulling from your students, from the learners. You ask them questions. Yes, the transparency around the boiler men. Initially, it's kind of was a strategy I made up in the moment, and then I began to use it more often. And then I revealed, yes, I know, yeah, I know that you know that I know, but I'm pretending not to know so that you are going to tell me, which is the practice that you're having. So it was like a nod and a wink. They knew that I knew, and I knew that they knew. So it developed over the course of the time I was with them. And then, of course, with the next group of people, I could be more transparent about it. So sometimes I say, I'm going to play the role of, what do I call it? Innocent, naive. I'm going to be very naive right now because I'm forgetting everything I know about whatever it is. Teach me, show me. There's nothing more attractive saying to someone who knows a lot about dinosaurs or whatever it is, show me, tell me about it. And suddenly they forget that they can't speak the language. They speak it in an unfiltered way. It doesn't get through their brain. It doesn't panic them. And I'm the one who's suffering from, I don't know, I can't do this. Help me. But they know it's a game. So yes, that was that. And teaching, and then you can hear that the last bit is letting the learning happen, is walking beside your client or clients as part of their support crew whilst they are doing the learning. And you may have to go and do some research, but I'm really, really lazy. If we ever need any research done, I just say, oh, we need to know about X, do we? Fine. So who's in here? Who's going to do that? Who feels most interested in that? Who feels most challenged by it? You know, who do we vote for? That's another one. Who would we like to dump this on? So that the learning is within the group rather than the teacher teaching so much. And then I'm walking beside, and I've evolved it even more to where I'm almost invisible to the group. I'm almost invisible. It's more difficult when you've only got one, but it's quite easy if you've got 3 or 4. If you hear my voice when I'm teaching English, then I'm stealing the learning from them because they should be doing it. I learned an awful lot of how to teach when I lost my voice. I've written a little book called Lessons from Laryngitis. I lost my voice. Can you imagine a teacher losing their voice? It's your only weapon some days. And I couldn't speak. But I suddenly learned that they could. And I then used chalk on the board, it was that long ago, to help them choose roles to play so that they would learn. And the roles would be, you know, who presses play on the tape recorder and who gets to choose which article we're going to work with and that kind of thing. And they would take newspaper articles in English and make a news report. They would précis, I mean, they wouldn't do a précis, but they would shorten the articles so they could read it in a newsreader style. Loved it. I learned so much. And that's why I was almost silent, because I didn't have my voice. And if I link back to Gabriella's question, I did continue to pretend to have no voice, even when I did have one. When they knew it, like, no, I don't need to speak. Come on. I believe in you. I trust you. You will find this. Great. So rounding off, questions, your own stories. Yes, if you have your own stories. I'm sure you have. You've been teaching more than 5 minutes. You got a story.
Maybe, I don't know if I can just jump in here for a minute to unlock, you know, the little bit of silence here. Perhaps you can all unmute your microphones however you feel. But I think it's the stories which are interesting when we realize that, yeah, 2 or 3 very interesting things that you've said here, Martin, were, you know, this don't steal the learning, to walk beside them and to allow them, you know, full reign of what's going on. So giving them that empowerment, the, you know, the control of what they need to be focusing on. So because if the focus is with you, then it's your focus, it's not their focus. It's quite obvious. And if anyone has any stories or just any ideas that they'd like to share regarding this, because I think that that's really important. And yeah, just don't steal the learning. And if you lose your voice, that's not such a bad thing.
No, I learned about community language learning, which is where the community, the group, learn and they use the teacher like a talking dictionary. This was not when I had laryngitis anymore, but I taught them the community language learning method, where they have a discussion, and if they go, oh, what's that word in English? That's when they ask me. I don't give it to them, but they have to ask me for it. And that worked great at all ages. I was astonished that adults were willing to let the teacher be silent. You know, they've paid me to teach them, and there was me sitting in the corner of the room going, I'm here if you want me.
Kat has an interesting story here, and I think Marion also, so if we're looking at the chat here, but you can unmute yourselves and just tell us these stories.
Yeah, what happened? Your back gave out, Kat. What happened there? Yep. We can't hear you for some reason. Off mute, but you...
I have my speaker in.
There you
I just was out. My back was completely out. And I went to the back of the room and I said, okay, everybody's got to help everybody. And if they had any questions, I would just yell from the back of the room, flat out on my back. And I realized that I got out of the way. It was really a great experience for them too, you know, for me and they were 10-year-olds. They were fantastic.
So it was a kind of collaborative teaching, learning.
Very much so. Very much. I think they just all the teachers kind of out, you know. Now we have, but they were help. It was lovely to see that, how collaboration happened, and it was great.
And to think about that, it does mean that all of us at some time have actually been in the way. We've prevented that collaboration from happening because we believed our job was something else. We thought we had to be at the front, maybe, I'm paraphrasing myself, to be a front of the room teacher, and that's what we're paid for. No. Surprisingly enough. Anesh,
I've got an interesting story for you all. So we take our students outside every day and just talk to strangers, and we coach them on making the city their classroom. And we have daily tasks that we give students every day. And some of these things that we call focus sentences, we teach them based on sentences that are functional for them to use in everyday real life situations. And because we're talking to strangers all the time, these strangers are like, what are you doing? Why are you talking to us? Why are you asking us, you know, is this statue named after anyone or anything? And some of the focus sentences we taught the teachers were, well, I'm currently an international student studying English with on-the-spot language. The other student would jump in, which is an experiential language immersion program where we go outside. And the other student jumps in, where we talk to nice strangers like yourself on a daily basis. And after our students, all three of them had different roles in communicating that big sentence. And guess who I found my next coach? It was one of the strangers that they actually spoke with. And they're like, an experiential language immersion program where you talk to strangers. So the next day I got a LinkedIn request and I got a call. I'm like, hi, some of your students actually just talked to me and I'm fascinated by what you do. And the fact that they were teaching me about your program, they're like little marketing ambassadors of the city. So I'm like, oh, well, they say your clients are your best marketers.
Which is exactly why I'm saying that switching to a more coach-like approach accelerates your business, because nobody says, oh, I learned 27 conjugates today. It is not what you go and say over the coffee table. But if you walk into a room where you're known to be a little bit nervous, speaking the foreign language, and now you're not. Now you're like, oh, he's cool, calm down and cool, and delivering.
Confident.
Yeah. It's more to do with the whole person than just the language. They will become your best marketers. I was at Mercury. The reason I mentioned Mercury is because it doesn't exist anymore. But they had 30-something trainers, leadership trainers, and they had to work internationally. And my job was to get them up to speed with the English language. They knew English, they just weren't happy using it. I got them happy using it. And because if a consultant cannot take on an international assignment, they will lose money, they will lose status, their progress through the company will go backwards. Of course, there's an interest in learning language, but that's not what got them to sign up. What got them to sign up was, it was great fun being in the presence of someone who took them seriously and made them feel good. Built up their confidence, had them scream at the top of their lungs, I am a leader, and believe it. And It's not the only one. I have done that several times. It's a good technique. What? Notice that what? I pretend not to understand, although it's fairly clear I did. It's a strategy. And even though the strategy wasn't spoken, it was pretty clear. So I think the learners, once they get it, that you are really going out of your way to help them, you've dropped the expert hat and you're willing to play the role of the naive novice. And please help me, or I can't understand what you're saying. Could you say it? Yeah. Or whatever it might be for that particular person.
And probably
Yes,
like
running
many
over
coaches
time.
here, I was just going to say, Martin, that one of the questions we always ask as coaches to our learners, like, what did you learn? What was your takeaway from today? And my students already know. It's not like I learned this article or this pronunciation. It's like, well, actually, I knew that by, stepping into fear a little bit, that, I can now do this, or actually the power of complimenting someone and making them feel good. So the learning is more than just what English they learn, it's what tools or skills that I'm walking away with, right?
And this is the thing that all teachers in a school, I have a very strong focus on upgrading educators. If they teach maths or English or whatever, they all teach students. And if they can get them feeling confident, doesn't matter what they're teaching, that's a win for everybody. Carolyn, did you have something to add there? I saw you lean to the screen. Had you been in my class, I would have called on you. So you happen to be on screen leaning forwards.
I was going to put it in chat, but sometimes at the end, I'm playing off of Anesh. What did you learn about yourself today?
Yes.
And you talk about fear and confidence and everything. And because becoming functional in another language can really make people feel empowered.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a few experiences. I was a German teacher many decades ago in the US and took student groups over spring break to the German-speaking countries. And I could just see the light bulbs go on, that they realized, oh, people really do speak this language. Because up until then, it was just within our little classroom. They'd leave and that would be it.
When I did my teacher training way back in 1977, it was actually an experiential teacher training run by a Swedish professor. She was in her 80s at the time. And she liked us to dive straight in and find out where the bottom of the swimming pool was, rather than teaching us too much. And one of the teachers, the French teacher at a school, was also the deputy head. So he had a lot of clout. And he was also very close shaven. He had bristly hair. And he only spoke ridiculously French with a strong French accent, not as a Frenchman would say, but as we perceive French people. Because he would say, look, I can get away with this, so can you. So he would walk into a class and he would speak in French with a really strong accent, and the students would answer him back with a really strong accent, getting over their fear of sounding a little bit odd, a bit different. I certainly remember learning Swedish. I didn't like sounding like a duck. I hated the sound of Swedish until I suddenly got over the fear. It wasn't I'd learned enough words. I got over the fear of sounding silly. Anyway, my last question is, did I fulfill my promise? Have I focused on exploring turning English into a business? I think I have. Did you learn about switching from teaching to coaching and how that engages your business in a different way so you can thrive?
And applied to any language.
Yes, and I would say even mathematics. I was going to give this talk about mathematics, but Gabriella said, yeah, I don't think it's going to resonate very well. But yeah, any language. Sorry, I put English up there, but that was my starting point.
Yeah.
And do you have the difference between teaching and coaching? And then 4 questions, the format questions. If I've done that, then my job is done. And the last picture, for some reason, oh, there it is something for Gabriella to say. Nailed it, Mariam, thank you. Yep, all good.
Yeah, YouTube, yeah, all good. All right, okay. Glad that we all made it out the other end. So absolutely okay.
It's about
Any takeaways that you want to just share with us, or anything that you're taking away that you're going to be applying, then we're very happy to see that or hear that. But just as a closing note, of course, we're going to be around all summer in various guises and forms, but in particular, we're from now on focusing on the International Language Coaching Conference, which takes place in London live on the 2nd of July. So hopefully that's going to be something that resonates with everyone who is in our community or has perhaps just joined this community. And we're looking forward to that. In the meantime, do check out our language coaching markers, which are a sort of guideline and standard for anyone who thinks seriously about language coaching and wants to see what the background is, what kind of framework they could be using to apply to their own coaching, and learn a bit more about different ways to be approaching it. And Martin is also putting in his steps to coaching.
A newsletter that I put out every couple of weeks. It's 12 steps you can take to make your classroom, and I'm aiming at school teachers, more coach-like. And I believe people who, within ILCA understand that already. I would like that to happen in the classroom, instead of it having to come out to do it.
Right.
So, oh, thank you, Anesh. I will click on that.
Anesh has something there. It's about being able to hire yourself and empower clients with the tools needed to succeed and ask the right questions. Absolutely. Okay. And Dylan was here. Hello, Dylan. Yeah, I haven't seen you for a long time. Hopefully we'll meet sometime. Okay. And thank you everyone else for being here. If there's nothing else, then we're going to close this for today. Okay. See you. Yes, see you, Carolyn, in London. Definitely looking forward to that. Anish also. So everyone who's there, then we hope we're going to have a wonderful time. I think we will. And thank you, Martin, for being here. And of course, I forgot to say that Martin is also a board member for ILCA. I wanted to say that at the beginning, but anyway, I'm saying it.
A small thing to forget.
Okay, thank you very much. Sarah sharing that she relates to all the stories. It's empowering to hear the same motives. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here with us. Hopefully we'll be meeting either in London or sometime on YouTube channel or anywhere else. We'll see what we cook up for the summer. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. And I'll stop the recording here. Goodbye. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.